There comes a moment in life when waiting ends not because circumstances change, but because you do. This is the moment you stop asking if things will work out and begin moving as though they already have. Most people spend their lives reacting to what they see, measuring possibility by appearances, and delaying belief until proof arrives. But life has never responded to hesitation. It responds to certainty. When you know, truly know, something is done, the world begins to shift without effort. Doors open without force. Events align without struggle. People move into place without explanation. This is not chance, this is law. Life obeys the inner position you occupy. And when that position is certainty, reality has no choice but to follow. Today is not about hope, wishing, or waiting. It is about acting from the end, standing in the quiet authority of knowing, and allowing life to rearrange itself around that knowing. Because the moment certainty becomes your state, life must obey. Everything that appears in your life begins not with action, but with acceptance. Before anything takes shape in the outer world, it must first be settled within you as a fact. This inner acceptance, this quiet decision that something is what we call certainty. Certainty is not hope, and it is not belief in progress. It is the calm knowing that the matter is finished, even when no evidence yet exists. Most people confuse effort with creation. They believe that trying harder, repeating affirmations, or forcing emotion will make things happen. But creation has never required strain. The world does not respond to intensity. It responds to conviction. When something is assumed as true, life begins organizing itself around that assumption automatically. No strain, no struggle, no persuasion. Certainty is creative because it removes contradiction. When you are certain, there is no inner argument. You are no longer divided between it might happen and what if it doesn't. That division is what delays results. Life reflects your dominant inner agreement, and when certainty is present, the agreement is total. There is no opposing voice strong enough to cancel it. This is why fleeting emotions do not manifest, but sustained assumptions do. A moment of excitement followed by doubt carries no authority, but a quiet, settled knowing, even without emotion, has immense power. The outer world takes its cue from what you consistently accept as real, not from what you briefly desire. Certainty does not announce itself. It does not need validation. It does not seek reassurance from signs or progress. When you are certain, you stop checking, you stop watching, you stop wondering when, and that very stillness is the signal life obeys. The moment you stop asking, reality starts answering. Understand this clearly. Life cannot disobey certainty. It may delay while the assumption is unstable, but once the assumption is fixed, movement becomes inevitable. People, opportunities, timing, and circumstances all reorganize themselves to match the inner conclusion you have reached. Not because you deserve it, not because you worked for it, but because certainty is law. This is why acting as if works, not as a performance, but as a position. When you internally occupy the state of fulfillment, your thoughts naturally change, your reactions soften, and your expectations settle. You are no longer waiting for permission to relax. You relax because the outcome is already decided within you. Certainty shifts your identity. You stop thinking about the desire and begin thinking from it. You no longer ask how it will happen, because the question feels irrelevant. Once something is accepted as done, the mind stops interfering. And when the mind stops interfering, life flows. Many people try to use certainty as a technique, but it is not something you do. It is something you decide. It is the moment you say inwardly, "This is mine," and refuse to revisit the question. That refusal is powerful. It closes the door to doubt and opens the path for manifestation. You do not need perfect faith. You do not need constant positivity. You need one final inner decision. Once that decision is made, live from it, think from it, react from it, and allow life to perform the details. Certainty is not arrogance. It is alignment. It is remembering that the outer world has always been responsive, never authoritative. When you claim something inwardly as fact, life has no choice but to reflect it. This is the creative power you have always possessed. Use it deliberately, settle inwardly, and let certainty do the work. Desire alone has never been enough to change a life. Desire is the spark, but assumption is the fire that keeps burning. Many people want deeply, imagine vividly, and still experience delay, not because something is wrong, but because wanting keeps the mind oriented toward absence. Life does not respond to what you wish for. It responds to what you assume to be true. An assumption is not something you repeat. It is something you live from. It is the inner story you no longer question. The outer world is a mirror that reflects this story faithfully, without judgment or delay beyond what inner instability requires. When the assumption is one of lack, the reflection is struggle. When the assumption is fulfillment, the reflection must eventually match. Desire looks forward. Assumption stands present. The moment you shift from "I want this" to "this is already mine," you step out of the state of waiting and into the state of possession. Waiting always implies uncertainty. Possession implies finality, and life follows finality. This is why longing can feel painful. It keeps attention fixed on what is missing. The more attention you give to absence, the more absence is confirmed. Life is not responding to your emotion. It is responding to the position you occupy. Wanting positions you outside the experience. Assuming places you inside it. Assumption works because it simplifies the mind. Once something is assumed, the endless questions stop. The mind no longer asks how, when, or through whom. Those questions belong to the state of doubt. Assumption closes the loop. It declares the matter settled. And what is settled inwardly must be expressed outwardly. The world you experience today is not a reflection of your hopes, prayers, or intentions. It is the outpicturing of what you have consistently accepted as real. This is not punishment or reward. It is mechanical. Life mirrors with precision, not preference. If you want to see change, do not fight circumstances. Circumstances are already effects. Instead, examine the assumption you are living from. Ask yourself honestly, what do I expect here? What feels normal to me? What outcome would not surprise me at all? That expectation, quiet and unspoken, is the assumption life is obeying. Changing assumption does not require force. It requires repetition of inner acceptance. You gently return again and again to the feeling of "this is how things are now." Not with excitement, not with desperation, but with familiarity. Familiarity is powerful. Life reflects what feels normal to you. Many try to manifest while secretly preparing for disappointment. They imagine success while emotionally bracing for failure. This split weakens assumption. Life reflects the dominant position, not the hopeful one. When fulfillment feels natural and disappointment feels foreign, the balance has shifted. Assumption also governs reaction. Notice how you respond when something appears to contradict your desire. Do you panic, explain, or retreat inwardly? Or do you remain calm, almost indifferent, because the outcome is already decided within you? That reaction reveals what you truly assume. To live by assumption is to stop negotiating with appearances. It is to understand that appearances are temporary, flexible, and secondary. The inner decision is primary. Once that decision is made and maintained, the mirror must adjust. Desire asks, assumption commands. Not through force, but through certainty. and the world, having no will of its own, reflects the assumption faithfully. Shift the assumption, and the reflection must change. It cannot do otherwise. Struggle exists only where the end is uncertain. The moment the outcome is settled inwardly, effort loses its purpose. Acting from the end is not about pretending or forcing behavior. It is about living from a conclusion already reached within. When the end is assumed, the path to it no longer concerns you. Life takes over the details. Most people act from the middle. They constantly ask what step comes next, how far they are from success, and whether they are making progress. This keeps them emotionally tied to the journey rather than the destination. Acting from the end shifts attention away from process and places it firmly on possession. And possession is effortless. When you act from the end, your thoughts change naturally. You no longer entertain anxious questions. You no longer rehearse failure. Your inner dialogue becomes calm, simple, and resolved. This inner shift removes resistance, and resistance is the only thing that ever makes creation feel difficult. Effort comes from trying to make something happen. Acting from the end comes from knowing it already has. This knowing alters your reactions. Situations that once triggered fear or urgency lose their emotional charge. You respond with composure, not because you are indifferent, but because the outcome is no longer in doubt. This is why struggle is such a clear indicator of inner position. If you feel tension, urgency, or desperation, you are still looking toward the end rather than from it. The moment you occupy the end, tension dissolves. There is nothing left to push against. Acting from the end also changes your sense of timing. You stop racing the clock. You stop comparing your progress with others. Time becomes irrelevant because the conclusion feels present. And when time loses importance, impatience disappears. Many misunderstand this principle and attempt to imitate external behaviors associated with success. But true acting from the end is internal. It is a shift in identity, not performance. It is thinking, choosing, and responding as the one who already has, not as the one who is trying to get. When the end is assumed, decision-making becomes simpler. You naturally choose in alignment with fulfillment. You stop tolerating what contradicts your assumed state, not through force but through clarity. The old options no longer appeal because they do not match who you are now. This is also why acting from the end feels natural once assumed. You are not holding a pose. You are not monitoring yourself. You are simply being, and being is powerful because life responds to state, not effort. The outer world may still appear unchanged for a time, but your inner world has already shifted. This inner shift is the cause. The outer change is the effect. Acting from the end means trusting this order without interference. Struggle returns only when you abandon the end and re-enter the state of becoming. The moment you decide again, settle again, and return to the end, ease returns. This is not a one-time act. It is a practice position. When you live from the end, life moves for you. Events align, conversations happen. Doors open in ways you could not have planned. Not because you forced them, but because you were no longer in the way. Struggle is not required. It never was. It dissolves the moment the end becomes your starting point. What you are experiencing now is not happening to you. It is happening from you. The outer world does not move in real time with your inner shifts. It moves with delay, reflecting past assumptions, past reactions, and past inner conversations. Once this is understood, impatience loses its grip and doubt begins to dissolve. Circumstances are never the cause. They are the effect. They are the echo of decisions once made within, even if those decisions were unconscious. This is why reacting emotionally to appearances only extends them. When you argue with circumstances, you are arguing with yesterday's assumptions. The moment you accept that circumstances are delayed responses, you stop assigning them authority. You no longer read them as signs of failure or success. You see them for what they are: temporary formations that must eventually shift once the inner cause changes. This understanding brings calm. Instead of panic, there is patience. Instead of reaction, there is observation. You stop trying to fix what is already dissolving, and this calm is not passive. It is powerful. It signals inner stability, and inner stability accelerates change. Many people undo their progress by emotionally responding to old reflections. They assume nothing has changed because the outer world has not yet updated. But life does not refresh instantly. It follows sequence. The inner assumption must first become stable, and then the outer world reorganizes to match it. Think of the world as a screen and your inner state as the projector. Changing the image on the screen without changing the film is impossible. But once the film changes, the screen has no choice. It must display the new image, even if the transition takes time. Delayed response is not denial. It is not resistance. It is simply the natural order. When you remain faithful to your inner decision despite unchanged appearances, you demonstrate certainty. And certainty shortens the delay. Circumstances test nothing except consistency. They reveal whether you have truly shifted or whether you are still dependent on evidence. When you stop looking to circumstances for confirmation, they lose their power over you. And paradoxically, that is when they begin to change. Understanding delay also removes the urge to control how things happen. You no longer interfere with the process. You allow life to arrange people, events, and timing in its own way. Interference only comes from doubt. Trust flows from certainty. Do not attempt to fix reflections. Do not argue with shadows. Change the inner light source and let the shadows move on their own. The outer world is efficient. It does not resist new assumptions. It only waits for them to become dominant. This is why persistence is not repetition of words, but persistence in state. Remain inwardly faithful to the end, even when appearances lag behind. The moment the inner position is firm, the outer delay begins to collapse. When you understand that circumstances are delayed responses, you stop living in reaction. You live in intention. You stop being surprised by appearances and start expecting alignment. Delay is not failure. It is transition, and every transition is temporary. Remain settled. The response is already on its way. The greatest misunderstanding is believing that conviction should come after proof. This belief keeps people waiting, watching, and wondering why nothing moves. But life has never operated in that order. Proof does not create conviction. Conviction creates proof. The outer world only confirms what has already been accepted within. When you wait for evidence before you settle inwardly, you remain divided. One part of you hopes, while another part withholds belief. That division weakens assumption and delays expression. Life mirrors the stronger position, and the stronger position is often doubt disguised as caution. Conviction is not blind faith. It is not forcing belief against reason. It is a quiet inner decision that no longer needs validation. When conviction is present, you are no longer emotionally dependent on outcomes. You are calm, steady, and resolved not because you see results, but because you know the result is inevitable. This is why true conviction feels ordinary. It does not carry excitement or tension. It feels natural, almost unremarkable. And that normality is exactly what makes it powerful. Life reflects what feels normal to you, not what feels extraordinary. Proof always lags behind because it is an effect. Effects follow causes. The inner acceptance must stabilize before the outer confirmation appears. When you understand this, you stop chasing signs. You stop scanning your environment for reassurance. You remain inwardly unmoved, and that stillness becomes the signal life responds to. Many lose conviction the moment appearances contradict their assumption. They interpret delay as denial and return to uncertainty. But contradiction is not rejection. It is simply old momentum playing out. When conviction remains steady, old momentum fades and new momentum takes its place. Conviction changes how you interpret everything. You stop seeing setbacks as obstacles and begin seeing them as rearrangements. You stop taking silence as absence and start recognizing it as preparation. The mind no longer creates stories of failure because the conclusion has already been decided. This is also why conviction cannot be maintained through force. It must be chosen and then allowed to settle. Repeating words without inner agreement creates tension. But once the decision is real, repetition becomes unnecessary. You return to the state naturally, without effort. Proof arrives quietly. Often it comes in ways you did not anticipate. A conversation shifts, an opportunity appears, a circumstance resolves itself, and when it happens, it feels obvious, almost expected. This is how you know conviction preceded it. When conviction is firm, impatience disappears. You no longer measure time. You no longer count days or compare progress. Time belongs to the outer world. Conviction belongs to the inner one, and the inner world always leads. Do not weaken conviction by checking constantly. Checking implies uncertainty. Stand still inwardly. Let conviction become your default position. Let the outcome feel decided. The more final it feels within you, the faster life moves to confirm it. Proof is not something you chase. It is something that follows, and it always follows conviction. Decide first. Settle inwardly. Then allow life to show you what has already been accepted as true. The greatest mistake is believing life leads and you follow. In truth, life has always been the follower. It takes its cues from your inner decisions, your assumptions, your sense of what is already settled. When you act from certainty, you are no longer reacting to the world. You are instructing it. Do not wait for reassurance. Do not negotiate with appearances. Decide inwardly and let the decision be final. Once something is accepted as done within, there is nothing left to force. The outer world will move in ways you could never plan, through channels you could never predict, at the exact moment required. Certainty collapses time. It removes resistance. It turns desire into possession. And when you live from that state, life responds with precision and obedience, not because you struggle, but because you know. Stand firm in the end. Think, feel, and move as one who has already received. Let life catch up to your assumption. It always does. Thank you for being here and for choosing to listen with intention. If this message resonated with you, sit with it. Let it settle. Let certainty become your natural state. Remember, life is not something to chase or control. It is something that responds, and it responds perfectly to the one who knows. If this spoke to you, stay connected, return often, and continue living from the end. Because when certainty is your position, nothing is impossible.